All right, at ease. Everybody listen up. First off, need you to do something for me. Go to streetwarriorradio.com. Do your Amazon shopping through there. I know you're going to shop on Amazon. I know it. You know how I know it? Because Amazon is worth $1.6 trillion. That's a fake number. That's fake news. But Amazon is worth a lot. You know why they're worth a lot? Because everyone shops on Amazon. You do your Amazon Prime. Your kids got Kindles. You got a Kindle. You get your book there. You get your groceries there. Everybody goes to Amazon Prime. So what I need you to do is tighten up. Go to streetwarriorradio.com. Click the Amazon click-through. Do your shopping. Nothing else. Put your info in. Check out. Wait for your Amazon Prime delivery. That's it. It's that simple. That's what I need you to do. All right? Too easy. I also want to thank Top Notch Tactics while I got your attention. Those guys' info should be up on the website coming soon. They're just a really good security company, veteran-owned, police-owned, great group of guys. They're really making some headway out there, so be on the lookout for them for all your security needs. TopNotchTactics.com is where you can find them for right now. Like I said, their link will be up on our website soon. So make sure you're going to Amazon click-through. That's really all I need y'all to do. So go ahead and relax. Big Bo out.
Supporting great causes is not only a great way to help others and the community, it's a great way to help yourself in the process. Today we feature Harbor of Hope. Now, Harbor of Hope believes that children should have the opportunity to heal and engage in meaningful activities within the community and their families. Harbor of Hope strives to make a safe environment for families and children and will take advantage of positive opportunities to support permanency goals and the overall well-being of the agency's clients. Now, Harbor of Hope provides child care services and treatment services to male and female children from birth to 17 and up to 22 if they meet specific eligibility criteria for their continued stay in the foster care program. It is the agency's goal that foster families create strong working relationships with all members of the treatment team. With that approach in mind, Harbor of Hope intends to create an environment for children that promotes healing and a healthy transition to permanency. Harbor of Hope has adopted the following vision statement to be a leader in providing quality services, to support the permanency and stability of children and families. Through this, they have chosen to carry out this mission through providing the following services: 24/7 support for clients and families, case management, consultation, and referrals to service providers within the community. Go over to theharboroofhope.org and check them out, and if you're so inclined, please donate. Also, Concerns of Police Survivors. Now, Concerns of Police Survivors, or otherwise known as COPS, was organized in 1984 with 110 individual members. Today, COPS membership is over 47,000 survivors. Those survivors include spouses, children, parents, siblings, significant others, and affected co-workers of officers killed in the line of duty, according to federal government criteria. COPS programs for survivors include the National Police Survivors Conference, held each May during National Police Week, sponsorships, peer support at the national, state, and local levels, COPS Kids Counseling Reimbursement Program, and the COPS Kids Summer Camp. COPS Teens Outward Bound experience for young adults, special retreats for spouses, parents, siblings, adult children, extended family, and co-workers, trial and parole support, and other assistance programs. COPS knows that a survivor's level of distress is directly affected by the agency's response to the tragedy. COPS therefore offers training and assistance to law enforcement agencies nationwide on how to respond to the tragic loss of a member of the law enforcement profession. COPS is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and their programs and services are funded by grants and donations. It's an extremely important cause to the survivors of fallen law enforcement officers. Please head over to nationalcops.org. Check them out, and if you're so inclined, please donate. And as always, you can find links to these organizations plus other great causes on our website at streetwarriorradio.com on the left-hand column of every page. That's streetwarriorradio.com. This is Street Warrior Radio episode 013 with your hosts Big Bo and me, JC. I will remember you, though we were just a home you happened to be passing through. And you might not even remember my name, but the way I feel is still the same. I will remember you. But before you go, there is something that I really do want you to know. That if things get rough, and you're struggling through, even years from now, and you don't know what to do, we will still be here. I fell in love with you. I would never trade a minute of my time with you, and maybe one day, when you're grown, on your own, you'll have memories of your time in this happy home, and you'll come back again. I sometimes picture you, maybe years from now, at my door, walking through. I see your familiar smile and whisper your name. I throw my arms around you, so very glad you came, and I never let you go. I invite you inside. We'd talk and laugh and hug and try hard not to cry. You'd see your photos still hanging on our wall to tell you that you're remembered often every day and that you were home. But it's just a dream. Right now you're so young and don't understand what's happening. I close your suitcase, love notes buried inside, hoping you'll see them and know how much you're loved, and it will make you smile. But I must let you go. No matter how it hurts, I'll hide it so you won't know, because I want you to be happy. I don't want to make you sad. And though chances are that I might never see you again, please know I loved you so. The days ahead I dread. Found my daughter just this morning crying in your bed. Found a box of precious Legos, the ones you couldn't touch, with a tear-stained note taped to it from my quiet son, wanting you back. Memories flood my head. When I find a tiny sock hiding underneath your bed, I want to kiss your toes. I want to hear you sing. I want to close my eyes and pretend this isn't happening. I want to cry no more. And so I'll say goodbye, and hope that you'll keep a piece of me tucked close inside. And whatever you do, and wherever you go, I just really hope and pray that you will always know I will remember you. And that was a poem called I Will Remember You, a goodbye poem for my foster children by Karen Elliott. On this episode, we featured Jami Steiner. Jami is the executive director of Harbor of Hope, a nonprofit organization that focuses on family services and foster care programs. Jami has dedicated her life to the service of children in need and founded the organization to better fulfill those needs. We were happy to have Jami on to spread her message and get the word out about the importance of helping children of the community who are in the unfortunate position of not having a good family base and support system, or not having a family at all. You can find out more about Harbor of Hope on their website at theharborofhope.org. So please sit back and help us welcome Jami Steiner to the Street Warrior Radio podcast. Jami, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you, for those that don't know about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
I'm Fort Worth, Texas, so where I grew up. I went to school at UC Arlington, got my bachelor's and master's degree in social work, and I've worked in social work for about 10 years now, and I've had pretty, normal life. I have a son. I'm married. I have a couple of stepkids. But yeah, I've been working in social work and decided I wanted to start my own foster care agency, and that kind of brought me to you guys.
Okay.
Awesome.
So why don't you explain Harbor of Hope for our listeners?
Yeah, tell people what you're doing on our podcast.
What I do. Okay, so Harbor of Hope is a foster care agency. I'm located in Denton, and what we do basically is we recruit families who would be interested in working with kids that find themselves in the foster care system. So that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be for abuse and neglect. Usually you're going to see kids come into the foster care system whose parents are addicted to drugs. And so they're experiencing some situations where they don't have a stable home environment. So Harbor of Hope looks for family. We train them up, give them all the information they need to become good foster parents, and we place children in their home that they'll help, and we'll do case management services for those kids once they come into care, which means that we'll recommend them to therapy services, anything they really need to help kind of get them on the right path to heal from whatever has happened. Because sometimes these kids come in and they've not gone to the dentist, and they have tons of cavities, or they haven't been to the doctor in forever, and they need to catch up on their immunizations, things like that. Harbor Hope will kind of supervise the whole process for those kids. And generally speaking, we're wanting families that want to foster are interested to help these kids. But sometimes, these kids don't get to go back home to their relatives, so then they'll end up being adopted, usually by the foster family.
Okay.
What's the training process like for the parents?
So the training process is pretty drawn out, and I think that a lot of the times that's what discourages people from wanting to be foster parents, because it's a lot of training hours. I keep trying to add up the total, but then they're like, oh, you got to add this training or that training. But, it's anywhere between 30 and 40 hours of pre-service training. And usually those are going to be topics related to proper kind of discipline once the child comes into foster care, simple things like CPR, first aid. You'll have a variety of different trainings, how to be kind of culturally sensitive to the kids you're working with. There's a lot of different topics, but a big one that's new now is normalcy training, which basically tries to help foster parents not be so afraid of letting their child have a normal life, which is kind of hard for a child in foster care.
So is the training for the parents, is that something that's like a annual thing, biannual? They only have to go once, or how does that work?
So the pre-service training happens one time before they're licensed, and then after they're licensed as foster families, they have to do ongoing training.
Gotcha.
Which that can look that just depends on how they want to do the training. Some of the stuff they do at the beginning, they have to renew annually, but then they can go to different conferences, or even like some of our foster families might be school teachers, and so they're going to have trainings pertaining to children and their developmental needs. And so they can use that training as ongoing training as well. So you're constantly having to learn throughout the year, and that's up to the agency to kind of facilitate that for them. Okay,
so is that training? I think you said it was free to get licensed. Is that even their annual training? Is that free as well?
The only thing really a foster parent has to pay for training, it just depends on what you want to do. So I know there's conferences around the area where you do have to pay to go and do training, but there's so many free trainings out there, and trainings that the agency will do for you that will be free. The only thing in the when you're starting out, it's going to be like you might have to pay someone $45 to do CPR first aid training or something like that, because I can't facilitate that myself, so I'm not trained to do it. But yeah, most of the time you can get that training free unless you want to shake it up and do something a little different, and then you can pay to do that training. But it's usually pretty easy to come by.
Okay. All right. So what are some of the things that you've noticed dealing with foster kids and police?
Oh, foster kids and police. So the reason I decided to move out to the Denton area, I guess I should kind of back up before I answer that question, is because I really wanted to work in an area that had, more foster kids coming in the system than families available to provide them care. And as I'm getting going on everything and seeing how it all goes, I get these emails for referrals for kids, and they're mostly teenagers. And teenagers are typically, or even I've seen kind of between ages of 10 and up, tend to be those kinds of kids that we call the police on quite frequently in foster care, and I don't really know. Well, I do know why. It's because people, I think, are fearful of confronting or dealing with kids who are a little bit oppositional in a sense. And so I see that oftentimes, police are kind of like the first line of defense if they can't get a child to kind of de-escalate, or if they're punching a hole in the wall or doing something, that is a little bit more aggressive, that, if you if foster parents focus on de-escalation and things like that, that might be able to help. But sometimes they get so scared by the way the foster system works. Like, well, if I talk too harshly or I contain my child, then I'm going to get in trouble and I'm going to lose my foster care license, blah, 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 blah. So let me call, 911. And then oftentimes they come out and they're like, okay, we don't really know what to do. I mean, the kid's scared to death because you see a police officer there, but that's probably not the best route for a child that's already kind of been scared out of their mind in the first place. So.
And I think one thing that we deal with too is they talk about always like, some of these kids have dealt with troubled homes, and like you alluded to before, their parents could have been into drugs, or just it's not a good environment that they were living in. So the only time they've ever really dealt with police is in a negative light.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah. What would be one of the best things to do as a law enforcement officer, or even a parent who's fostering a child, if the child wants to run away? I want to go back home with my parents, or I don't want to be with you guys, I don't like you, just rebelling sort of. What are some things that a parent or police officers can do to try to alleviate some of that?
Well, I think a lot of the times it's making the child feel like they're empowered in some sense, because when they're running away, they feel like there's a loss of power there, obviously, because they want to go home and they can't. I really encourage, like a really good example for kids that get the police called on them are when they need to be taken to the psychiatric hospital or something like that, because there's still pretty strict rules. I mean, if a child is saying, hey, I'm going to kill myself, you got to take them to the hospital. But they know that, foster parents are not going to contain them and take them, to the hospital because they're fearful. So they'll call the police, and the police will restrain them and take them to the hospital. But then at that point, it's kind of like foster parents say, bye, and don't follow up with whoever the police officer was to the child. So I think whenever there is a call, that if the police officer and the foster parent still work together in some way to de-escalate it and talk it out before it gets to that would be best, rather than just being like, okay, we're going to strap them up and throw them in, the car and take off with them, which I guess would be the easiest and quickest thing to do, but it probably won't be the best. And I think having that kind of partnership in that regard would be good. As far as running away, that's just, it happens a lot, unfortunately. And it's something you have to kind of, develop the relationship with the foster parent. I think if the child knows that, hey, if I act up, the police are going to be called every single time, they're not going to really be. That's not a lot of goodwill between the foster parent and the child. So being able to kind of, I guess, not have the police officer come in and be like, hey, let me fix your problems, and then leave. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that really answers the question well enough, but I just envision, like, I'm thinking of all these times where kids were just hauled off to hospitals that I felt like, well, maybe there could have been a better way that we did this, where maybe if the police had to be called to kind of just be there in case, but there was some way we could still talk them down to get them into the parent vehicle to take them to the hospital in the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think there has to be a better way, and it's the same thing with mental health patients. It's the same exact thing. There has to be a better process for these kids, because obviously in a lot of cases it's a revolving door with a lot of, I think, at least from my observation, a lot of these kids, they go through it's the same stuff over and over again, and it's because they're not getting the services or the help that they need, and it may be because the services don't exist, but there's got to be a better way to do it. For instance, in our case, when we go to calls having to deal with this kind of stuff, law enforcement's kind of become like the catch-all of everything. So like, not only are we having to deal with crime, we're also having to be counselors, we're also having to be mental health people, we're having to be, child services, we're having to be all these things that we're not trained for. And so I think a lot of times when officers have to deal with kids, if they don't have any sort of specialized training, which is hard to come by, that kid is often not getting the help that they need, because they're getting, taken off to wherever, whatever, juvenile, or getting taken to the mental health facility. And it's just that's not what that kid needs, depending on the situation, of course. But
that's interesting, because yesterday I was training one of my potential foster families something called SAMA, which is a behavior management program, and it's an 8-hour course that most therapeutic foster agencies have some sort of program. And it's like either the old school one was like PMAB or something like that. But there's a de-escalation technique in there where they talk about, it's just a very, like, when you practice it, it seems a little disingenuous, but like it kind of goes through the helping process, they break it down so much that even anyone who can read and understand and talk can do the de-escalation process. And it was funny, I was watching that video, I've seen it like a million gajillion times, and they were saying that this is something that law enforcement can use too. And I was like, wow, I don't know if they are, but it certainly would be cool if they were able to be given this script to kind of help de-escalate, especially, for kids. Obviously, I don't know a lot about being a police officer, but I imagine you're having to deal with kids on occasion, and sometimes they can be a little bit, aggressive or upset or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Sure.
talking them down before having to put your hands on them is probably going to be a lot better, I don't know, in any case or any situation. But
yeah, you can't just walk up and backhand them anymore. It just doesn't work.
You can't
like
do
that.
that.
So,
You can't do that. You can't do that in foster care either, unfortunately.
No.
effective sometimes, but
Cannot do it.
Maybe that's why foster parents feel like maybe I should call the police, and then the police can do it.
No.
yeah,
Yeah, I tell them all the time we can't do that.
no, because then somebody will magically have a cell phone
Yeah.
and they'll record it. So when you have people, or you talk to people that are looking into being foster parents, or even into adoption, what are some of the biggest mistakes that potential foster parents make?
Like before they're licensed or after they're licensed?
Both.
Yeah, let's do both.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, sure.
We got time.
Cool.
Why not?
So the mistakes that potential foster parents make. The first mistake I feel like they make is they do a lot of research on their own, I think, or go into these little Facebook groups and kind of, what's your opinion on this and what's that, and then they get all of these this information, and then sometimes some myths come out of that, or misunderstanding about certain things. Like a big one that's kind of a big reason I wanted to start my own agency was that people were like, oh, this is a cheap way to adopt babies, as to go into foster care.
I'll just be a foster parent and won't have to pay adoption fees.
Right, yeah.
It's a child discount store. Let's just...
Yeah, it's like adoption discount. And instead of actually coming to an agency and being like, hey, I have these questions, and not forming an opinion or forming an idea or having, this strict idea in their head. And, I don't know if my agency would lose, business because of this, but if someone were to come and tell me, hey, I want to adopt a kid, I want to adopt a baby, I can't have kids on my own and I want to adopt a baby, I would be like, well, this isn't the place for you then,
right. We're not the adoption baby factory.
Right. I don't have babies in my filing cabinets or anything, so I'm not able to help with that.
At least none that you'll admit to.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I think that's the biggest one. And also the other big mistake that I think people have is that they come in saying, okay, I want a little sister for my, my son. My son wants a little sister. And, eventually, then they have that bond. They become, feel close like brother and sister. But, I mean, it's more, I need people here that have the mindset, this is an emergency. These kids are in an unsafe situation, and I need to provide them safety. And I'm talking like basic needs safety, like warm bed to sleep in, food in their tummies, medical care, psychological care, all of these things. I need people in that mindset, but sometimes, people come into this thinking, they don't think of it from that angle. They think it more of like, my family wants this, my family needs this, well, these kids need your family, and that should be like the opposite way of thinking. And I think if you come in with that notion, then you end up always kind of having a better experience as a foster parent. So, like, if I have a foster parent that comes in and says, it's really been tugging on my heart. In fact, one of this lady I'm working with right now, who I just adore her, she told me that she had, when she was a kid, in her community, there was these two teen boys that they were foster kids that had run away from a residential treatment center, and then they ended up killing themselves. And that, like, was just, like, stuck out in her mind of, oh my gosh, this is awful. And she decided, once I got to the place in my life, I want to be able to foster and help kids, Yeah, so, like, having that kind of attitude is always better than coming in with this, I want a baby, or I want, a 3-year-old that has blonde hair and blue eyes. Like, it just doesn't work if you do that, because it's
like
a lot.
They're picking out
it's a
like
lifestyle,
they're picking out an accessory.
It's a cause almost. So if you sit here and do, like, come in to become a foster parent, you're going to live that life every single day. It's not like you're buying a purse or, buying a new pair of shoes or something like that. This is, a lifestyle change that you kind of have to get accustomed to, and you have to be passionate about the work that you're doing. Otherwise, you're just kind of not going to be a very good foster parent. So I guess that's the previous foster parent error. I guess after foster parent error, let's see, you can make a lot of mistakes after you get your license. So as you're starting to be a foster parent.
Are there any that get into it just for the money benefits, the financial benefits?
So, I mean, that's a hard money to earn. I don't know that it's like you're going to be doing a lot of work for not very much money.
Or maybe that's one of the myths
I'll tell you this. I have known people. So I was a program director for a couple of years, and every time you change over to a new agency, you're meeting new people, and I started meeting some of the new families, and I had, like, the most horrific home visit with one of these families that I ever had in my entire life. Like, usually if we're in a situation where there's a foster mom and a foster dad, you have, like, the foster mom is kind of like the spokesperson, and you rarely deal with the foster dad. I know that's kind of, I don't mean to be stereotypical of it, but it's just kind of how it goes. But in this family, the foster dad was, like, the guy in charge, and he was, like, in a meeting. We were in, like, a meeting with CPS, and he was wearing, like, a wife beater shirt and had his big, muscle all out, like, and yelling and carrying on and acting crazy. And I'm like, what? It was just the craziest thing. And he was mad because of this kid. He had a teenager, and this is another thing that kind of just happened. He got in trouble at school for smoking pot, which that happens, unfortunately. But he was just losing his mind on this kid, and I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, like, this is really stressful, and his placement was kind of being, like, threatened in a sense, and that's not allowed either. So I was like, wow, there's too much going on here. And I'm, like, trying to leave, and he stops me before I leave after our meeting. He's like, I need more packets. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I need more packets for placements. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm not going to do I'm like, we don't need any more placements right now.
No. I need more kids in this household.
Yeah, and then I immediately, once he said that to me, I was like, can I come back into your house? And he was like, sure. And I was scared out of my mind. This guy was really big, I'm not used to someone, like, in this setting, like, in the foster care world, like, getting in my face or yelling at me, especially not a man. So it was a little intimidating. But I was like, let me go back inside. So I went and I looked into the foster kid's bedroom, and literally there was, like, mattresses on the floor. There was broken lamps. I was looking in the closet. There was no clothes. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, okay, you're done. So then that's when that happened, and to close down foster homes, which are fun. That's a fun process, but
I bet.
Nevertheless,
I would imagine that is difficult because you're trying to place some children, and then you have to close down a house where you could have potential kids going to.
Yes, it is challenging, but as far as I'm concerned, if I have a kid that's wearing the same outfit every day to school and they don't feel like they're getting yelled at the way he was getting yelled at. I mean, I was scared, and I'm not a child. I'm an adult, and sometimes you have to kind of make those decisions. And it, that kid in particular, we had quite a fun time. over the next couple of years. And he threatened to beat me up one time, and that was fun.
Oh, man. Well,
He was
geez.
a good kid. I mean, he's a really good kid. I really love him a lot. Yeah, I think he was just, he had some issues. I hope he's okay now. He's an adult now, by now. But,
Oh, my gosh.
But
All right. So,
yeah,
what are some negative things people think when they think of fostering a child or fostering children? What are some of the negative stigmas that are just on fostering children or having them in your house? You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of stigma on having foster kids because, first of all, there's this instructor. His name is Dr. Brian Post, and I use him as a reference for a lot of people when we're teaching him discipline training. And he said something in one of his videos about scared kids do scary things. And you kind of take the approach of, if you think about it for a second, these kids are in survival mode pretty much 24/7 before they come into the foster home. So, they're just trying to live, and some of these kids are extremely young, and they don't, all they know is they need food or they need, some kind of comfort or safety of some sort.
Yeah.
So then they kind of end up doing some, like to us, like as people that have kids that are normal and were raised appropriately, they start doing some wacky things that I think scare foster parents. And it's a huge ego blow when you're like thinking that you're a great parent, which is most like 99% of the families that I've ever worked with my entire career have been wonderful families. Like that one example I gave you is of the very rare few that I've encountered. But you have a kid that has these problems, you're getting calls from the school, you're, having to deal, like, these kids have, incontinence issues and hoarding issues and, all sexually acting out issues, which is another, like, a whole other can of worms that you're dealing with. And I think sometimes parents are like, oh, no, people are going to think I'm a bad parent. And the whole perception that, that I'm going to be a bad parent and, I'm trying to do everything I can. And I think that kind of deters people sometimes. Like, it's embarrassing, I guess, when you're walking in public and your kid throws, a hugely violent temper tantrum. I mean, every parent goes through it, but kind of with foster care, it's on, like, a whole other level.
So can you whoop a foster kid? Is that something that's possible?
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
So if they're going crazy, you can't just beat their ass.
So you can't spank foster children, like legally, or it's just not a good idea?
I have a question. If you had a child that was scared all the time and was being physically abused, what good is spanking going to do for that child?
I don't know. I've never been in that situation.
Makes me feel better.
No, I've never been in this situation. But no, that makes sense. I mean, I think if you're a parent, you know what I mean, and that's the way you parent and you spank your children, I think that would be the first thing you would revert to is, well, my kids don't do this because I have spanked them and they have learned that this gets a punishment. But I definitely get what you're saying. If they've been physically abused, that whooping is only going to bring back those feelings for them.
Right, and what I think parents understand, and this is another thing that people get deterred for foster care about specifically, is the fact that you can't spank the kids. But the problem is that whenever you're disciplining a child, and the child that you're spanking, so your children that you're spanking, they trust you. They know who you are. Like, they've known you since they were born, right?
Yeah,
so when you spank the child, you're not damaging your relationship with the child. They know that they can come back to you and they love, and that you will, give them affection and love them again. Whereas you bring a child that's been in the foster care system or neglected, abused, and that sort of thing, they don't have that kind of relationship with the caregiver. So you're actually causing more harm. Like, you want to develop a relationship with the child and develop that trust before you can provide good discipline. And that's why it takes some time. That's why, a big thing that happens in foster care is kids will be in a home for a couple of months, and the first month is great because they call that the honeymoon period. Everything's going great, and all of a sudden, their instincts kick in, and they start acting a little off, and the parent will just get frustrated and be like, okay, they need to move. Well, you have to give them time to develop a relationship. You're undoing, like, even if I'm telling someone to take a 13-year-old, you're undoing 13 years of whatever it is that they've been experiencing. But anyhow, spanking is not allowed at all through policy law or whatever in foster care. And on top of that, foster parents say that are people that come to foster care like, well, I'm still going to spank my biological kids, even though I have a foster kid. And you can do that. But I always tell them, be mindful, because that's a scary situation for an onlooker to be experiencing, like,
wow.
Just be careful, I guess, any kind of, spanking or corporal punishment. I don't think it's a good idea, honestly, if you're fostering to spank any of the kids in the home.
Okay. So what if I have a foster kid that's being an ass
wow.
And I hold my hand out and he falls onto my hand and it causes him to be spanked. Is that illegal? Wow.
I don't know. That's an interesting scenario.
I don't think legally we should touch that idea.
I'm just trying to throw stuff. There might be a parent out there that's facing that particular issue.
Well, they need to probably not put their hand out in front of the child. keep a safe distance. So
many rules. It just seems... No, I'm just kidding.
There's a lot of rules in foster care. That's why people are deterred from it. But you have to think about it, from on the larger perspective. For these kids, they really need that safety in it. And those rules are there, like, for a reason, you know.
Someone's tried this.
So it's fun. So do you find that, like, when people think about foster parenting, right? So there's certain jobs and there's certain types of people that come with stigma. So, like, if, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, when they think of a Boy Scout leader, they think of the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people, because of what's been in the news, is somebody that molests children.
Pedophile.
Right? And then you think of a Catholic priest, right? And even if you're not, like, it's the first thought that comes to your head, but for a lot of people, it is back there in the back of their minds, like, So, I feel like, or at least I've heard, people talk about foster care and all that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff happens a lot. Like it's abuse and sexual abuse and all that kind of stuff. Is that a stigma that you, based on your experience, that is something there's some merit to that at all? Or is it such a rarity and it's like a misconception about, because you always hear, like, foster kids are bad, foster kids.
It's a playground for pedophiles. They can just go and pick up a kid and abuse them, and the kid would have been better off staying with its normal parents.
I see
I may have worded that wrong, but
no, it's fine.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. I would say that is probably a misnomer stigma for foster care. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've had, to move kids because of spanking, like people spanking their kids. But have I ever had a home that got what we call as a reason to believe or unable to determine or any kind of, record like that? I don't think that ever happens at all. I think the biggest issue that I see as far as a child being re-abused in the home is being re-abused secondarily by another foster child.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. I had friends that were foster kids, and they said that the homes they were in, either the parents were cool or they didn't really care about them, but other foster kids in the homes would try to pick fights, or they would just be perverts.
Yeah. I think that's more along the lines of when you as an agency, you want to have families that are good with supervision. So, for example, I know teenagers are going to, smoke pot. That's something that's just going to happen, right?
Yeah,
but what
sure.
are you doing? What are you doing to prevent it from happening?
Spanking.
Not spanking them. Don't spank them. They'll just smoke more pot.
No, that's not true.
No, it's what are you doing to help stop these things from happening? And so supervision is going to be a big one. But that's an issue that I have heard when people are interested in foster care are like, okay, what about, the sexually acting out situation?
Yeah.
And unfortunately that happens because, a lot of the cases that we see are going to be because of neglect, which means that the parents are usually on drugs. And what we know about that is these kids are usually left alone in the home, or there's a million, shady characters in and out of the house. So we don't know who had access to the child. And usually speaking, a lot of these times these kids aren't necessarily going to be, perpetrating if you help them along when you first catch on to the fact that they could potentially, have been sexually abused. And normally you'll see, overly sexualized behaviors and things like that. But there's ways that you can, help the child,
Okay.
redirect them to healthier behavior.
So when you discover stuff like that, do you work with organizations like the Children's Advocacy Center or Friends of the Family or anybody like that?
Child Protective Services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would do. So usually what happens in foster care, so if we have a situation where a child acts out, every time a child makes an outcry saying, hey, I've been abused, we call the hotline. And that'll instigate or get involved the advocacy center or whoever else to do a forensic interview with them, because I'm not trained to do that. The foster parents aren't trained.
Yeah, we're not either.
Yeah, we're not either.
Right. So we just have to. What I tell them to do is just kind of listen to the child. Don't act shocked, because that's the worst thing a parent could do is be like, oh my gosh, freaking out about it.
Which would be incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Not do.
It would be hard.
Yeah.
You have to prepare yourself for things like that because unfortunately it happens.
Yeah.
I've heard some really awful things that have happened. So.
All right. So what are some of the differences you see when people foster little kids as opposed to teenage kids? Someone who gets a 4 or 5 year old as opposed to someone who's getting that 13, 14, 15-year-old kid.
The difference in what happens in the home, or different in the
just what are some different? What are some different things that you notice, like as it comes to like an older kid, like you said, would be smoking pot, as more of a little kid would probably be trying to act out or do some crazy stuff. What are just some issues you would have as opposed to fostering the different age groups?
Okay, so if a foster parent wants to take in a younger child, that child is probably going to be a little, I would imagine, delayed. So a 4-year-old, you might see at least talking by that point, and they may not be speaking, so you may have speech therapy, things like that for them. They may not be fully potty trained, and they may be able to go to the potty, but they probably, wet the bed at night, might do weird things like hoarding food, things of that nature, temper tantrums even still.
Yeah.
Kind of regressed behaviors, I guess, for a 4-year-old.
Okay.
But, you can also see that for a teenager, and these are all worst case scenarios that I'm giving out to you guys too.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's relevant because I think some people get into this, and what I've seen just in my experience in law enforcement and working as a school resource officer, sometimes parents get a little jaded because they're like, I took this kid in, this kid should be grateful. You know what I mean? And the kid's like, well, the older kids are less grateful because they feel like they've been snatched from their home, and the younger kids really don't understand how to be grateful,
Yeah.
And as a parent, as a foster parent, that shouldn't be the reason you're doing it.
Right. Yeah, because if you're wanting them to say thank you, they're not.
Yeah,
probably not
you shouldn't be doing
to.
this to seek gratification.
Or if they are, you should be worried, because usually kids that are overtly clingy like that and want to please you, every step of the way, which we all think, well, great, I got a really easy kid. No, there's something going on with them, that they are stressed out. They have some sort of stressed out attachment to you, or separation anxiety or something like that. So, I mean, you definitely want to give people the worst case scenarios so that way they can be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, right.
The worst
Exactly.
case scenario.
Yeah.
But any kid, even with older kids, so if you had a teenager come into your home, they might have regressed behaviors too, depending on what happened to them if they were abused at a certain age. But the difference between a teenager is that the focus is going to be a bit different, in the sense that you need to start prepping them for adult living. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking 10, 11, 12, as soon as you can, as soon as you get this kid in your home, we should be prepping them for adult living, as far as how do we make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? How do we wash our clothes?
Some life skills.
Because these kids, you don't know how long they're going to stay with you, and you don't know when they do go home if they're going to need those life skills to kind of help manage the household that they're returning to. So those I think are good. And those age 2, they have things through CDS called PAL that the kids can take advantage of. They take so many trainings, and they can get assistance whenever they, age out of care and go into some kind of high school or college or trade school or something like that.
Yeah.
So there are things that they can start preparing for. But yeah, those kids, your focus are is going to be a bit different. What's better about those kids is they're going to be able to talk to you and tell you why they're upset, whereas a 4-year-old, isn't going to tell you.
Yeah, sure.
Able to talk to you. They're just going to be upset, and they're not even going to know why themselves. So every time someone's like, oh, I want a little one, I'm like, oh, it's much easier to get a teenager because at least they can, talk to you about. But that's just because that's where my heart is. Like, I really feel like independent living and transitioning from foster care to adult living is something that just isn't good. And I'm not even really sure where to start. And I'm thinking, well, if I have this agency, then I can maybe try and focus on families that want to help teenagers, and then we can kind of figure it out together.
Yeah.
And see how to make that better, because unfortunately the statistics are kind of against the kids in the sense that, they'll end up in jail. Honestly, a lot of them do. And so that's not the cycle of abuse happens again and again and again. And it's not good.
Sure. So kind of switching gears a little bit to the parent side, do you ever have anybody or deal with anybody that comes in and based on their occupation, and this is kind of a 2-part question, but based on their occupation and scheduling and what they do for a living, is there certain types of people that based on their work you wouldn't think they would be, or you wouldn't recommend them to be foster parents? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, obviously if you're in the military, that probably wouldn't be good, unless you had a spouse or someone that stayed with the children, or stayed home or wasn't traveling or that sort of thing. If you're a single parent and you're working night shifts, that's going to be kind of tough. So you probably don't want to, a nurse in a situation like that or something of that nature is probably not going to be good unless you have, a consistent caregiver available to help care for the child at night.
Okay.
So that would be kind of a very inflexible work schedule, let's say, would probably not be ideal. If both foster parents had an inflexible schedule, then inflexible schedule, then that would be difficult.
Sure. So in that same vein, do you think first responders make good foster parents?
Yes, I think they would make
Really?
excellent foster parents. Again, depending on the situation. So if you say they have a spouse or significant other that can, kind of help save the kids consistently if they kind of have a erratic schedule. But usually first responders will be the best foster parents because they're not going to be as taken aback probably by some of the things that the child will do and say. And they would kind of have thicker skins, I guess, about it. So, yes, that's a very ideal. Teachers are really good, would be really great foster parents because they see behaviors constantly in the classroom setting. So I think they have kind of a good understanding of what they would what to expect from a child that's coming into their home. So I think they would be really excellent as well.
Okay.
So between police officers and firefighters, who would be a better foster parent? And just remember,
asking for a friend. We're asking for a friend.
we're asking for friends.
Police officers for sure.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, there was some nice
See, I knew that. See, I knew.
firefighters,
Yeah, they can't handle.
collecting money.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had known firefighter foster dads, and they were amazing foster dads.
As long as they
awesome.
weren't taking naps.
Hey, they never took naps.
Oh.
Never slept on the job.
Good.
That's all they do. Anyway. No, I'm just kidding. I love our firefighters.
All right. So, tell people where they can find you at. Tell us, social media, where you're located, all that stuff.
Okay, well, my physical office is located in Denton on the Square, which is amazing. I love it here. So that's where you can find me in the physical location. My office hours are just one day a week right now on Monday, but that'll extend, as we get going. My website is www.theharborofhope.org, and I have a blog that I started on that website because I felt like a lot of the things we talked about I wanted to be able to share and on my website as well. Just so people can get to know who I am and kind of my position on things as far as the type of foster families that I want.
Okay.
And then also we have a Facebook page. The handle is The Harbor of Hope.
Okay. The Harbor of Hope, like THE?
THE, The Harbor of Hope.
Okay. All right. And how can people help your cause?
Yeah, what can people do to get involved?
There's a couple of things that people can do. So sometimes people are like, I can't be a foster family. Like I just said, it's not something we can do right now. That's not what we're our heart's at. There are a couple of things you can do. There's a way that you can become a respite provider. And a respite provider is someone who can help care for a child between 72 hours and 2 weeks and consecutively. And usually that's to help if there's a family emergency or something like that, or maybe, the mom and dad want to go on an anniversary getaway or some sort of thing, then they can have that support available to them. Or they can become a babysitter. Oh. Which is like maybe if they want to help pick a kid up from school or take a kid to Chuck E. Cheese or something, or kind of help in that regard, kind of almost like a mentor or big brother, big sister kind of thing. Yeah. They can become a babysitter. So those are some big ways they can help support my cause or our cause or the agency's cause. Of course, we really want foster families willing to help kids that are kind of on the older end of the spectrum. Yeah, sure. So that's the biggest way to help.
Is there any other, do y'all do any charity events or anything like that?
So I don't have any charity events now. Y'all can always donate to the agency, and what that would do is the agency would put that aside for caregivers and for babysitting and for even daycare costs because, once a child comes in the home, if they have to go to daycare, that's really, really expensive. Yes. So y'all can definitely donate. I actually I'm really excited. Can I share this event? Am I allowed to share?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Share.
Okay, I'm really excited because I'm a pretty avid runner, and so I've always wanted to be able to help sponsor a 5K, and I'm actually, Harbor of Hope is sponsoring the Denison ISD 5K for Kindness and Fun Run.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Which is going to be on April 21st, and it starts at Denison High School, and it's the proceeds and all the money raised is going to the Denison Education Foundation and the Boys and Girls Club of Denison. So it's pretty cool causes that it's going to. But what's real cool is I get to have a little table there. So I will be out there talking about Harbor of Hope and meeting people who are interested in potentially fostering.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm really excited to have our logo on the back of the running shirt and everything.
Heck yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's amazing.
Congratulations. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to donate money to help you out, where would they go to do that?
StreetWarriorRadio.com.
Yes. Go to Amazon click-through on Street Warrior Radio.
You've caught on quick.
You've caught on quick. I like you. That's great.
Yes.
They can go to my website.
Okay.
And if you go to my website at www.theharborofhope.org, and there's a little drop down that says ways to help, and you can donate through there. Also, if you do donate, you will get a cool Harbor of Hope t-shirt.
Sweet.
We have tons of them, so we'd love to be able to give those away.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Big Bo, do you have any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. She's awesome. She answered all of them.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all we got. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Any call to action for our listeners out there? Any inspirational messages?
Inspirational messages?
Words of the day, anything?
I don't have anything like that, no.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to thank Jami for being on the podcast. She was pretty awesome. Really sweet girl. She's got a good mission out there. So you guys make sure you check her out and help Harbor of Hope out. If you're in the Denison area, definitely sign up for that 5K.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to put links to the website, to her website, theharborofhope.org, I believe is what it is, on our website, SureWayRadio.com, and we'll put it all over our social media. So,
For sure.
Big Bo, I got a question for you.
Go ahead, bud.
This has to do with being in law enforcement and dealing with not kids, but parents.
This is a crazy subject.
Right. So this is kind of like,
and it ties into what we were just talking about with Jamie and Harbor of Hope and all that.
Sure. And it's actually like honestly, it's an irritant.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is an irritant.
Oh, so, for sure.
So most of you out there listening most of our listeners are pretty squared away.
Yeah.
So they're not, there are people out there that cannot get their children to do the simplest of tasks.
To get out of bed in the morning.
Getting out of bed, brushing their teeth, wiping their ass, putting their seatbelt on. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. And their solution to doing so after they huff and puff in front of the child and give up is to call a police officer to come to the house
and talk to little Johnny.
Scare their kid into doing what it is that they want them to do.
Now, let me say this, just a little quick caveat. Listen, I understand that's what we're police and we're there to service the community. I get that. But what you don't understand is you are building a negative relationship between the police and your child, because I am no longer seen as an authoritating figure. I'm seen as an antagonist. I'm seen as somebody that mommy or daddy called because I won't listen to them. And so now when your child deals with me on the side of the road because of a traffic stop, he's going to see me in that same light he just saw you in when you called us because he wouldn't put down the Xbox controller, because he wouldn't go to bed. And these are legit calls that officers have dealt with. My daughter is 16 and she doesn't understand the importance of wearing her seatbelt and won't listen to me. Can you talk to her? Sure, I guess. It's not my kid,
Which
but
is
sure.
fine if you're doing an educational sort of deal.
Yes.
But what I really am referring to is the people that, like, for instance, got a call one time, right? 6-year-old little girl in the back seat of the car. Refused to put her seatbelt on. Mommy couldn't get her to put her seatbelt on, so she calls the police.
Oh my.
She wants me to scare her kid into wearing a seatbelt by telling her something horrible that will happen to her. This is literally what we're talking about this,
Are you
all right?
going to take me to jail? Are you going to take her to jail?
Or I'm going to take her to jail at 6 years old.
Which is horrible. These are bad things.
So, how do you in a tactful way, right? Because you can't just, it's funny, people out there, they see us and they see some of the things that we have to deal with, and they're just like, I could never be a cop because I'd lose my shit. Well, we know because we're there. And we can't, though, right?
No, we can't.
We can't, though. As much as you want to just turn around on that parent and be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? And that lady, okay, so side note to that, this lady wants me to talk to this girl, 6-year-old girl, about not wearing a seatbelt, right?
Yeah.
But mom doesn't even have a car seat in the back for the 6-year-old girl.
Oh, come on, lady.
Which I was able to use as leverage to turn that conversation around, right? But that being said, how do you as a you Big Bo, Officer Big Bo, SRO Big Bo, how do you if you were in that situation, how would you approach that?
What I try to do is empower the parent. I try to take all of this off of me, and
like,
I try
yay,
to
team parent, let's do this.
Not so much that, but like, so I've had how do I get my kid to get out of bed in the morning? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They don't want to come to school. Blah blah blah. They're bigger than me. Well, like, you have to empower that parent. You have to make sure that they realize it's almost like giving a pep talk to someone. Mm-hmm. You're the parent. Go in there and do what a parent should do. If you don't spank your child, you need to take everything out of their room. If they won't get out of the bed, take the bed out of their room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to put them back in the position of power, because the child is in power of that situation now. And that's what you don't want, because those are the kids that we're going to end up dealing with that are super disrespectful to their parents.
So what you're saying is treat prison yard rules.
Sort of, yeah.
So
heck
if
yeah.
let's say their kid's bigger than them, right? And they're kind of scared of their kid.
Yeah.
What do you tell people? What do you tell people that are scared? You always hear this on TV or movies or whatever. You go in there, you find the biggest dude, and you lay him out. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that.
Yeah, no, we're not telling you to beat your kid.
Unprovoked violence towards children is obviously a crime.
Yeah.
Right? As much as you feel like they might deserve it sometimes, and probably do.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But I don't know. It's hard because it's hard.
It really is.
It's hard because of a couple of reasons. Because if you as the responding officer, if you're already a parent, right?
Yeah, you go into that in parent mode like, I can't believe it.
You're looking at this other parent like, what is wrong with you?
Yep.
Like, seriously right now?
Yep.
You can't handle this 6-year-old child, so you called the police?
Yeah, it's really frustrating because, everyone always says, you guys could be out catching criminals. And, like, at that point in time, I'm like, I could really be going out doing some other police work. But this is, what people don't understand is that's part of our job. That's answering a call. And it's just super frustrating to us because you're frustrated as the parent.
So should it be part of our job?
Ooh, no.
You're right.
I don't think it should be part of our job either because I don't remember any part of my basic police officer training ever was doing with child psychology. No,
I mean, you can obviously, when you're dealing with like an actual some criminal or mental health issue or whatever with a juvenile, you can rely on what you know as a parent, what you remember as a child, your own life experiences. But we're in these particular situations, which are just frustrating as hell.
It's just a kid being a brat, and it's a kid being a child.
But it's a parent being a brat,
and it's a parent being a brat too,
and throwing a fit about it.
Yep. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be the bigger kid, and I'm going to call the cops. It's just like, I called mom.
Right.
The cops are on their way, and I've shown up, and parents.
It's the wait till your father gets home.
Yeah,
argument,
I've showed up, and parents have been like, "I told you I was calling the cops," and then the kids throwing back like, "You really called the cops on me for this?" And it's just like now you're hearing between a bickering war, and it's just like man.
When you're, it's like when you're out somewhere, and a parent has their kid, and they're like, if you don't start behaving, this man's going to take you to jail.
And you're like, no, that's not what I do.
And I always look at the kid and I say, I'm not going to take you to jail. I'm not going to take you to jail, buddy. I'll take you for some ice cream or something. I'm not taking you to jail.
Yeah.
What I want to say to the kids, I'll take your mom to jail.
Yeah, I'm going to take mom to jail. How about that? You know what I mean? It's just super frustrating.
No, it is. It really is. It's hard. So now you did bring up an interesting point though, right? Because it is something that obviously we do have to deal with, right? So as much as we don't like it, as much as we loathe it, as annoying as it is, as a lot of other aspects of the job are, but you have to deal with it, right?
Yes.
Right. So you brought up an interesting point earlier about empowering the parent. All right. So for the parents out there that are listening, right, and they're struggling with their kid, or maybe even their foster kid, right?
Yeah.
Because that's obviously there's a lot of foster parents out there. There may be some foster parents listening to us. I'm sure there are. If they're struggling, if they're at the end of their rope, this regardless of whatever it is, regardless of whatever the topic is, or whatever the issue is with the kid, as from insignificant to major, what are some techniques to empower that, or what would you say to those people to kind of empower them?
I think what you do is when you get there is you got to kind of formulate a game plan with the parent. Like, okay, so what is it that you want me to do? What is it that you want to accomplish here? Well, I want Susie to put on her seatbelt. Okay, what I'd like you to do is you go over there and you put the seatbelt on her and you tell her you're going to wear your seatbelt or you're going to either be grounded or I'm going to take away this. And when you do that, I will back you up. I will be your backing. Like, she has every right to do that legally, and she can do whatever she wants. She's the mom.
But is a 6-year-old going to understand that?
I think a 6-year-old will, especially when you start talking about punishments.
See, I look at it like this. I think that if you're going to talk about empowering, you have to reinforce the parent.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes and even children, and you have to do this in leadership roles. Sometimes you have to look at people and you just have to explain why.
Yeah.
A simple explanation of why. Hey, listen, little Susie, right? We have to wear our seatbelt because if mommy goes down the road and you're in the back seat and somebody crashes into y'all's car, you could fly out the window and be seriously hurt.
Yep.
And then you won't get to have fun anymore. Then you won't get to... And sometimes, without...
Pulls up and he's like, oh my God.
But sometimes you have to explain to these, kids.
Yeah.
And it's not really explaining to the kid, but sometimes in explaining to the kid, you can also show the parent.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, look, This is how you do this, right?
Yeah.
Just explain to them.
Because, I mean, there's no handbook for being a parent, but if you didn't have good parents, I mean,
there's some you can go buy at the
Dr.
bookstore.
Spock's for sure. But if you didn't have good parents and then you're a parent who doesn't know how to parent because you didn't have a good example, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah, you don't have those basic foundations.
Yeah, you don't have those things to call back on. I mean, my grandma would have punched me in the face if I'd have told her when put
Yeah, well, you know,
on.
back in the day, things were different, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But, and you can get into a whole argument on whether or not the old way versus the new way is better or worse, right? I tend to think in my own mind, and maybe it's because I'm, approaching 40, that... God,
you're old.
I know, man.
You got a birthday coming up on...
Tomorrow. And Big Bo just had a birthday. But, yeah, so, I mean, I think as I get older, right, I start looking at, like, the stuff, the back in the day. Well, I kind of always thought this, but the way that things were handled back in the day, right, I think we're a little more effective.
I will say this
in some ways.
As I get, this is my own thing, leading into the next, caveat, is having kids of our own. You've got 6, I have 4.
Right.
We have a plethora of children.
Yes.
I've noticed as I've gotten older, I feel to myself that I'm a way better parent.
Sure.
I had my first son when I was 22 years old.
Right.
And I thought I wanted a kid until I had one. And I mean, it's not like I didn't want him, but I didn't know what I was doing. And my patience was a lot shorter. Like, I mean, he would spill juice on the floor and I'd be like, come on, are you serious?
Do you ever know what you're doing though? I mean, honestly, even up to
down, no. Especially with the first kid, I feel like you have no idea what you're doing. And then I'm not telling you go out and have a bunch of kids till you get it. But when I had my second child, or even as my son got older.
Maybe I'll get it right on the 4th
Maybe I'll get it right on the 5th one. As my son got older, my patience was a lot better.
Sure.
Like he would drop like a whole bucket of something and I'd be like, Junior, did you realize when you picked that up, you picked it up from the bottom and everything was going to spill out?
No, he didn't realize that.
And he was like, Dad, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's cool. Let's just pick it up. But when we fill it up, let's pick it up from this handle that God put on this bucket.
Right.
That way you wouldn't spill everything.
Which is why it's there.
Yeah, but when I was 23, 24, and he would have picked it up from the bottom, I'd have been like, Jesus Christ, are you retarded? What are you doing?
He's defective. Can we send him back?
Come on. And he might, and then he would have started crying, and then I would have got frustrated. But, and like now I see with my daughter and my stepson, like they're 3 and like they jump off the house, and I'm like, okay, you guys realize that jumping off the house, you're going to break your neck. Okay, daddy. And it's just, back up the thing. I'm like, those darn kids. But my older son, I think sometimes my son sees that and he's just like, I would have gotten beat for that. You know what I mean?
Your son's like, I hate you.
And that's how I was. Like, I mean, anything we did as kids, it was just like, are you throwing sticks in the yard? Come here. Pow. And, it's just like, well, I guess we don't throw sticks in the yard.
And this is why parenting is tough business.
Yeah, and it's listen, I swear, I am all for you should have a license to have a kid. I think that I'm serious. I think you should have to go through psychological testing. I think that you should have to go through classes.
Right.
I think that you should have to go through some sort of program before you're able to have children.
Well, I think natural.
And if not, you should have to pay a fine.
I think the natural selection process proves that there are people that should not be parents, right?
Dude, I mean,
and those are most often the people that have kids.
And the thing is, at 22 years old with my ex-wife, we would never have passed any sort of licensing committee.
Well, who would really? I mean, when it comes down to
when you're 20, I seriously, if you're listening to this and you're under the age of 25, do not have children until you're 27, because you will not get
several people under that age right now that are being like, I hate these people. I'm not listening to this podcast.
Listen,
anymore.
You won't get it. I'm telling you, you won't get. You will not get it.
It all comes with experience.
It does, and
it's just like with anything else.
I was in the military. I had deployed, and I thought I had tons of life experience, and I had a kid, and I was like, all right, so, and this is hilarious. It's a true story. My ex-wife was like, I was like, so, we got to make sure we have all these bottles and da-da-da-da-da, because I had been around kids my whole life.
Right.
And she was like, well, babies only eat 3 times a day. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just like us. I was like, time out. Babies eat every 2 to 4 hours. I was like, and they eat in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
She had no idea. She thought I was just joking.
She's in there making a bowl of cereal for the 6-month-old.
She was like, there's no way they eat that much. I was like, go ask some girl in your unit that just had a baby how much her newborn baby eats. I was like, they eat nonstop. They're hungry.
Yeah.
I was like, he's in your stomach eating nonstop.
constantly
Constantly.
absorbing nutrients.
Yeah, I was like, he needs that for the whole... I mean, there's just not enough experience
No.
You need at least 50 years of experience in life before you have a child.
If in a perfect world, yeah. If we live to be like 300 years old, sure, yeah. But you know what? Like,
If I could get in a DeLorean.
it's funny when you have the first kid, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, everything is paranoia, right?
Oh, yeah, for
You're
sure.
freaking out about everything.
You don't even drive 5 over the speed limit.
No, I mean, you're just nuts about it, right?
Yeah.
You're psychotic about it. And I think that's important because it teaches you valuable lessons for when you have other kids, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So when you have your second and maybe even third and so on, then you kind of take steps back. You're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
obviously most of the things I worried about never happened anyway.
Yeah.
And you tend to become more relaxed because you've gained experience, you've gained knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of figured out how it works. But I really think that parenting from the first child to the last child, until they grow up and become adults and leave the home,
You never know if you're doing
you're
it right.
really faking it till you make it.
Yeah, that's 100%.
To be honest, you're
I think
faking it till you make it.
You don't even get it until you have grandkids. I think that's why grandparents
think-
are so good at being
Exactly. And
parents.
I think that's when you see the true results
Yeah.
of the product of your parenting.
Yeah. Did I do it right? Okay,
I
if
do
I
it right?
did, now I can give my kids advice.
Right,
But
exactly.
if I didn't and they're drug addicts, there's no way I'm giving them any.
Well, I think when
Well,
you
now I can go the opposite direction of what I did.
I think when you see if you're in that position to be a grandparent, right?
Yeah.
And you see your children with their children and they're making all the right moves,
Yeah.
I think that's when you can really take a step back in your life and go, okay, I did it right.
Yeah,
I did it right.
I was watching an interview with Jennifer Lopez once, and she was talking about her and her mom had this strained relationship, and she said that she didn't realize how much her mom did for her and how much her mom loved her, and all the stuff her mother did for her was because of her love until she had children of her own.
Yeah.
And that actually strengthened their relationship.
Sure.
And I was like, I totally get that because,
Yeah.
Parents, we can seem like we're coming off as just,
Well, and a lot of times as kids too, depending
Yeah.
on your family dynamic and depending on how you grew up, if you have any sort of relationships with your parents, most people that are in that position get to a point where they go, wow, they develop a new appreciation for their parents.
oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
And that's not true in every case because
No.
every situation is different. But I think in your basic normal family structure where
Yeah.
you had a decent home and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I really think that people come out of that when they have their own children and go, okay, I understand. It's
Yep.
funny when you hear parents say, well, when you're my age, you'll get it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Wait till you
though.
have kids.
Wait till you have kids.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be a truer statement.
It is.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, we haven't done war stories in a while, so this is cool. And I feel like I know what story you're going to tell
Which one?
because I feel like I have the same one in the job. Crazy kids that you've dealt with.
It's not that one. It's not him.
It's not
that
DZ?
guy. No, it's not that dude. No,
Mine's DZ.
No, it's not. It's not. Mine is the kid. It's actually, I just referenced it a minute ago. It's a kid. We got a call to a single mom. She had I think 2 or 3 boys, and the kid wouldn't get off the Xbox, and she wanted the Xbox because she was going to ground him, and he hid the Xbox from her.
Ooh.
And so she called us because she wanted the Xbox. And I remember I was still in training. You were like, where's the Xbox? He was like, oh, no, it was stolen. And so we're like,
It was stolen.
we're like, and she was like, it wasn't stolen. No one's been in the house and blah, blah, blah. And then so like we walked out and you're like, so what do we do? I was like, I have no idea. He said it's stolen. I don't know. And you're like, well, watch this. So we go back in and you're like, okay, so here's the deal. That's like a $400 Xbox. Mom bought it. Ma'am, do you feel that he stole that from you? Yes, he stole that from me. Okay, we're going to charge you with a Class B misdemeanor for theft over $400 unless you produce that Xbox in the next 20 minutes.
Which was complete BS.
Yeah, and he was like, oh, this is bullshit. Come on. And he went to like some cubby in his room and pulls out an Xbox. And I was like, it was like magic. I was like, oh, he lied to us? No one stole his Xbox? And I was just like, you should feel ashamed, young man. Your mother is trying to raise you the best she can and you lied to the police? You are horrible. And he was just like, oh, I don't understand why I can't sit on my fucking Xbox all day. You guys are pieces of shit. And I was like, whatever, dude. Just give your mom the Xbox.
Right? I mean,
We were done, but I was just like, that was probably like the best one I've seen. And
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
just like,
sometimes you gotta, sometimes with these kids, because they think they're smarter than they are, right? And we all did at that age.
Yeah.
You think you're smarter than you are, but sometimes you do got to bluff them.
Exactly. And his brother was there, and his brother, I think, was either a year younger, a year older, and he was like, dude, just give him the fucking Xbox. I want to go to sleep. He was like, can't give him to it. Someone stole it. So
you know, I'm gonna talk about our old friend DZ. So DZ, okay, so imagine this, right? There are some cases where you have parents that give a shit and they do try their hardest.
Yeah.
And you just have a bad seed.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah, there's a movie about it.
And this was one of those deals.
Yeah.
You had this guy who just absolutely just, you know, probably was oblivious to some things and did ultimately at the end of the day make excuses because it's his kid, and I get it. But he had this, so what was it? It was some kind of, I can't remember the exact circumstances.
What happened was he ran away. He ran away to a family member's house.
That's right.
In our city. He stayed in a neighboring city with his father.
Right.
He ran away to our city, and they were at the other family member's house, and he wouldn't get in the car.
That's right.
He wouldn't go home with them.
So
because they had told him he could. What they told him was, we'll come pick you up in a little bit when we get off work, and we'll take you to your family member's house.
Right.
And he didn't want to wait, and he rode his bike all the way over there.
Right.
Which is like probably a 50 minute bike ride.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on where
Easily,
they live.
yeah.
Easily.
So,
God, I can't believe I still remember that.
I know. Yeah. I couldn't remember the exact circumstances.
I can't believe I still remember that.
But
that's how much this kid dug into our cross.
Oh God. So you know, when you're an adult, right? And especially when you're working in a capacity of a position of some sort of that has some sort of authoritative powers, like being a police officer, you know?
Yeah.
And first of all, it's hard for a lot of cops to be challenged, right? Because immediately you're like,
I'm a cop. Dare you? I'm a police officer.
But there adds an extra oomph to it when it's a child, right? Because you're like, this child needs a spanking right now. You know?
And what people don't realize is our hands are
and our hands are tied.
Honestly, our hands are. There's a reason why people say they don't want to be like school resource officers. Like I hear that all the time when I tell people I'm a school resource officer. They're like, better you than me, because legally, like our hands are tied with kids.
Sure.
And unless you're a school resource officer or someone who's worked very closely with juveniles, you won't understand that.
Yeah, and it's this. Sat here and watched this kid who at the time was 15, 14?
Yeah, probably 14,
15, something like that. And watched him cuss his dad up and down.
And his stepmom.
And us.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like...
He MF'd us all day.
He didn't want to listen. He was like ready to throw down.
Oh, yeah, he was ready. I think if it would have just been one of us, he probably would have.
And he might have. And other officers had those situations with him.
Yeah.
And it was like... You want to talk about testing of patience, right? I feel like I have an absorbent amount of patience, right?
Yeah.
This kid lit my fuse.
I know. I was there.
It was like you at one point you had to walk away for a minute and we had to trade off.
Yeah.
Talking to, because it was just like, if I don't stop talking to you right now, I'm going to do what your parents should have done to you a long
tag
time
team.
ago.
One of us would see the other one getting frustrated and tap someone on the shoulder and just be like, hey, hold on real quick. Let me talk to him. You know what, kid?
And then it was just like, I mean, we're talking like, he was cussing us up and down, and you just want to.
He needed a whooping.
That kid needed some.
And listen, I believe in spankings. I got spanked as a child. I believe it's a wonderful tool. I believe that
as long as it's not overused.
Yes, and I was just about to say that I had to tell one of my friends that one time. He was like, I whoop him all the time, and I was like, well, that's your problem.
Yeah, because it's not effective anymore.
He was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, he doesn't realize that acting up at school and spilling a cup of milk are different things. He thinks that no matter what he does, he's getting a beating. I was like, act up at school, you're not there. I said, you can't immediately punish him. I said, you need to have him it's like a elongated punishment. He's got to paint fences, pull weeds, do those things. I was like, you just can't beat him anytime he does something. And he was like, like a light bulb went off his head.
Sure.
He's like, oh. And now him and his son have a way better relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just can't spank your kid for everything. And I think sometimes that's what you get is like, people are like, spankings don't work on him anymore. Well, because you've overused that tool.
Because you do it all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to him anymore. He knows, okay, I'm late coming home. I'm going to get a whooping. Brung bad grades home. I'm going to get a whooping. I didn't turn the TV off in time. I'm going to get a whooping. It doesn't mean the same thing.
Yeah, and they become psychologically conditioned to it.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a bad job.
Yeah,
when you have a shitty boss. So like you go to work and you just like know, you're just like, okay, let's just get this over with so I can move on.
Yeah.
And that's what it becomes.
Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
Yeah.
Where he's not going to school and his dad comes in and he's like, we got these fucking letters from the postman and says you ain't been going to school, and he starts beating his ass. And he was like, you know what, I didn't even care. I got to hang out all day, and everybody needs a beating every once in a while.
It was like okay, yeah,
I'll take this.
I'll take it.
It's an even trade-off. I don't have to go to school. He finds out once a year. I get my ass kicked. Not a bad thing.
Whatever.
And that's it's sort of how people think about it. Kids get conditioned to it.
Yeah, exactly. They get conditioned to it and become no longer.
And his dad was Irish in that movie, so that's all his dad knew growing up was, I'm gonna get beat.
Yeah, and you just, I don't know, I just don't worry. This kid, however, it's sad. It really is sad if you step back and think about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was talking. It was like a serious test of patience. I know it's not like the most elaborate war story, in the world, but, it was a frustrating experience. So,
So who do we got? Who are our next guests coming up? Tell them who our next guests are.
So we've got this is episode 13. In episode 014 we will have Mike the Cop.
Boop boop.
And then in episode 015 we'll have Bill Blowers. For those of you who don't know who Bill Blowers is,
tell them who Bill Blowers
he's a retired SWAT officer.
Boom.
He was he's an Army veteran, and
straight up.
He runs a company called Tap Rack Tactical.
Yep.
And firearms training company, and he's a super interesting guy, really, really interesting guy. And we're gonna have a lot of stuff. If you're into firearms training and all that kind of stuff, this is gonna be a guy you definitely want to hear from. We've got a lot of good questions for him, and he's also got some amazing experiences and some great stories. We've got some other people that we're working on to bring on the show. We've got some upcoming episodes. Where we're going to we did a quasi half and half interview, half and half traditional kind of episode today, and then we got some regular episodes coming back where we got some topics we're going to talk about
for sure.
Which was funny because we actually had people reach out and we're like, hey, we haven't heard like a regular episode in a while, so we're gonna get back to some of that, and then we'll have some interviews coming up also, maybe some Q&A. We've got the Chris Kyle Foundation coming up
for sure.
That we're gonna hit up.
We got a red dot shoot class with
Jedi. We got Scott Jedlinski, who was in episode 10. He's got a red dot fundamentals class coming up
real quick. Y'all can't see this, but I'm me and JC recorded JC's house, and he is wearing no shoes, and he has the ugliest toenails right now. You really need your toenails done.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Anytime. Don't edit that out either. Leave that right there where it's at.
I'm not going to edit it out. This is raw. This is raw.
Raw like them fucking feet.
Man, come on now.
Take some clippers to them things.
They're not that bad.
No, they're pretty bad.
They're not that bad.
I am pretty sure your wife has been cut with those.
She has not been cut with those. Not this month.
This month for sure.
No.
Go ahead.
Leave my toes out of this.
Go ahead. Back to what you're doing. Go ahead.
Do I need to get in your issues?
No, we're fine.
You sure?
I'm positive.
We had experience today that we can share.
Nah, we don't need to share that.
You sure?
Positive.
I feel like we do.
Jelly everywhere. There's jelly all in my pants right now.
Anyway, so we got some good episodes coming up, so stay tuned for that. Hey, listen, so, man, we have, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there now. We have blown up.
Yeah, we got a bunch of downloads.
We have blown up. We like, it's almost.
We're trending in the right way. Thanks to y'all.
Yeah,
we appreciate all y'all listeners,
seriously.
Man. We wouldn't be nowhere without y'all.
All of our new listeners that we've had.
Yeah.
Man, it has been incredible.
Shout out to my dude in Canada.
Oh, dude.
Told his friends about it. Shout out Drake.
Zambia. Is that even...
That's right by Wakanda.
Yeah, right next to Wakanda.
Right next to Wakanda.
Yeah.
Wakanda forever, everybody.
Listeners.
Straight
We've
up.
got listeners all over the world now.
Hey.
All over the world.
We're international, baby. We ain't local.
Pretty sure we have a Hezbollah's listening to us. I'm pretty sure.
Hezbollah?
Yeah, we got some people from Iran. They're listening to us. I don't know. That's probably illegal there, but
shout out my Iranians.
But seriously, like we've had support, and the audience has grown to a global audience, and it's been incredible.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
We really appreciate all of our new listeners. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
And remember, to all our new listeners, you can find us on streetwarriorradio.com, our website.
Yep.
You can follow us on Instagram at streetwarriorradio.com. Twitter at
STRT, the word warrior, then RDIO.
Facebook. We need y'all to go to Facebook and like the page.
So Facebook's interesting, right?
Facebook is slowing down.
Facebook has been of all of our social media, right?
Facebook's been working.
Facebook has been the slowest to grow, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a grower, not a shower.
Pretty much, yeah. But honestly, if you want the most information on the podcast, on us, on things going on, Facebook and Instagram are going to probably be the best ways for you to go.
Twitter is where we get crazy.
Well, Twitter, I put out episode updates.
Yeah.
And
retweets.
And that's pretty much it.
But Instagram and Facebook is where all our original content's at.
If you want to follow us on social media, those are the two best places to go.
Check out our websites. Please check us out.
Website, yep.
streetwarriorradio.com. It's where you're going to find all the past episodes. It's where you're going to find our Amazon click-through, which is a great way to support the podcast. It's where you're going to find out all the other, like Humanizing the Badge, Harbor for Hope, TNT, Security Company. That's where you're going to find all the sponsors and people that help out our show, books that we recommend, other podcasts that we recommend. The website is one of the best things that you guys just have not even checked out yet, probably.
Yeah.
Go to our website. It's really an amazing website. JC spent a lot of time on that.
We also have all the episodes are available on there.
Yes, I said that.
And we've got contact. We've got links to other great podcasts out there. We've got links to great causes that we champion. We've got links to if you're looking for gear. We've got links for
Jeff Kyle.
If you're looking for supplementation, we've got links for if you're looking for workout gear. We've got links for BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gear. We've got links for all you law enforcement guys out there. And then we have reading list, recommended books.
I'm about to put like a top 10 rap album on there too.
You know, throw a mixtape down?
Throw a mixtape down. Sweet. I've been trying to put my mixtape out for years.
We got a lot of stuff. We got the Warrior Store coming soon.
We actually do. God,
we're exploring different options for merchandise.
Yep.
We've got
sponsors are knocking down our doors right now.
Knocking down. If you want to sponsor us,
you better get on the ground floor because it's about to blow.
It's about to blow up.
You want to say that you want to say that you were there first and you got the best deal and contract.
Literally, everyone's just like, yeah, whatever,
bunch of losers. I swear, we're in some talks. We're in some talks with some real important people.
We've got there's just so much going on right now with the podcast. So
it's growing, man. It's blowing up.
So anywhere else they need to know?
Nah, man, that's it. That's all I can think of.
Real quick. For all you bloggers out there or people that are interested in being bloggers, having a blog, all that kind of stuff. So I put out on the Facebook page, I've already created the URL. I got to develop the actual site, but we're going to have a blog and we're looking for people to contribute to the blog. We don't want it to just be us writing stuff and putting it out there. I want people to contribute. If you have a topic you're interested in, topic that you like writing about, send us your stuff. You can send us your stuff to the blog. It's blog@streetwarriorradio.com. I just created that email address.
info@streetwarriorradio.com
or info@streetwarriorradio.com. We also want to take listener submitted war stories for our upcoming episodes. Remember, war stories don't have to be like literally war. War stories is kind of a caveat catch-all for just experiences in life. So send us your war stories to streetwarriorradio.com/contact or on the email at info@streetwarriorradio.com. Questions. We love listener questions. We want some of those so we can answer them on the podcast. We already have some coming up.
Yeah.
And then just feedback. We would love to hear from you guys. We'd love to
Yeah,
hear.
for sure.
We'd love to hear how we're doing from your end. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yep. Big bow out. Salute.
With that, thank you to all the men and women of our armed forces who are around the world serving to keep us safe, to our first responders, police, fire, paramedics who are out on the home front, upholding your oath, keeping us safe, doing the things that you're supposed to do, to all the other people who make the world go around. Thank you so much for what you do. It makes everything worth fighting for. Thank you so much to our listeners and our supporters, all our new listeners. Welcome to the Street Warrior family. And with that, Street Warrior Radio is out of service.